This is for the lady that what's her name, Miss Subakoff, that wrote the book. I believe she went to MIT. She was at Harvard, and she's now on the circuit. You know what we mean by the circuit? You know what a circuit board is, what a motherboard is, which means her voice is now being heard, right, around and through more platforms. And so I just got done watching a short little snippet of California Insider that did an interview with a guy that has a Facebook group called Leaving California. Okay, so I'm not going to repeat and be redundant about ground that's already been covered. But since I came to California when I was supposed to be in California in 1954 and 55, living in Brentwood and moving pretty fast, going from Brentwood to Malibu to Northridge to the Bay Area, San Francisco, back to the San Gabriel Valley, back to southern Orange County, and then a lot of points in between and north and east and west and south at a pretty high rate of speed. And so this is what's going on now, is leaving California. So this gentleman was talking about what is really math. At the end of the day, it's math, logic, basic logic. Computer language is basic logic, which is log, right? Log in, log out. So you have log scale distribution tables of water. Water's a solvent to run the machinery. Memory, right? Biovoltage. Plasma, right? Circulation, breathing circulation. A living, breathing planet. So what I do is I measure things on very large scales because I'm experiencing it on large scales as an oversoul polarity integrator. So all you got to do is run the math, and the math doesn't lie. So what you really have here is a Bartle point, okay, that exists between the center point of origin, if you will, the first sound magician, right, on losing and gaining, or what I call the vampire chasing the artist, to suck everything down a hole. So what you have here is inverters that are reproducing themselves through seed. They don't have a one connection. So how are they ever going to be an accelerator? So you have inverters reproducing the acceleration of a black hole, which is a Bartle point, implosion, explosion, nova. And those that are learning to be accelerators, experiencing the highest accelerator. That's how simple it is. So you realize, as I did when I was a child, for example, they're chasing electrons. So their energy security, which is their consciousness security, is chasing more electrons. That's the money system. So you see how everything is all about acquiring more electrons. That's how the system operates. That's a flawed design, because the flow doesn't work. You know what a flow diagram is, right? Making sure that we're all experiencing being loved. Now you're into volume, now you're into gain, now you're into function, which is a function of math and geometry. It's actually that simple. So what you see here is this guy's describing, for example, he throws a number out there. Oh, I got to buy a $900,000 home. Okay. Well, when you have more inverters than you do accelerators, where are they going to get that? Where are they going to get those electrons from? That's an enormous amount of electrons for somebody just to be able to have a house on the Truman Show. And then that means that in order to keep paying that to the same folks, then you have to become an inverter. Right? Otherwise, you're not going to be able to maintain the Truman Show that you've been living in. That is a program, which is an API on grid. So you know what the ultimate Bartle point of that is, right? Collapse. So what you see happening is you see from Columbus moving across, okay, time-space vectors, okay, on a healing planet, going from what? East to west. Manifest destiny. Manifest the destiny. So the way that I explain this is real simple, okay? I'm running a mirror. The trees that are in my mirror, I'm in love with that mirror. I'm in love with those trees. Why would I ever cut down all those living sentient trees? Then I'm using my energy that is flowing through it, which is flowing through me. So if I go cutting trees down, then guess what happens? That's like cutting me down. So the very energy that is allowing those trees to grow, that I have a relationship with because I'm in love with nature, I'm not going to do that, am I? So you see what happens all across the entire United States of America. So what you have here is a rate of exchange between life and death, between a living spiral and a dead spiral, between how fast that mirror goes from a light mirror to a black mirror, right? Killing everything off. What you're known as killing fields, right? The force field, the EFI field, killing off the very field that is providing us with everything we need. I know. So you realize that's sadomasochistic programming, because their consciousness is inverted, because they've been programmed by virtue of what they see in their mirror, which is mass media programming. Okay? Loaded into program, loaded into RAM. Now they experience in the future what they are now. Now they're all wanting to leave California to get out of a place that they know that it's collapsing. Because there's no way they can accumulate that many electrons in order to keep it running. To keep that movie running. Because that's what it is. You're in the movie. Okay, Jesus. Now, of course, you could see this, the writing on the wall. Actually, I think a particular year that I was, the numbers don't lie, 1982, as I remember it. And one of the things that you began to realize, particularly when they're using psychotronic weapons, you get back into neurons, right? Generating a gazillion neurons. And so we know what an endocrine disruptor is, right? Upset the balance, which is distorted waves of communication, so that your communication system, which is your supercomputer that you're running as an antenna, is not putting out powerful plasma waves of consciousness, right? Perfectly balanced with the center point of origin, right? Properly grounded with bare feet. Mama. Right? Spirit to spirit, soul to soul, essence to essence. Yeah. And so you could see from right about that time, one of the things that I began to notice, just as a little marker, right? A flag, what I call flag the course, flag the roadmap, was how I noticed how the state of awareness, when we get into a state of awareness, and Aaron and I talked about this yesterday, like the guy that's now having to spend time and energy to fix his car, that if he had a thought about it before he did what he did, he wouldn't be experiencing what he is in the future, which is having to spend more time and energy to fix something that he broke. So, okay. So now he's got to spend more time and energy and money, right? Now he's got to find more electrons in order to get what he needs to do that. And that's how the system works, because it's broken. It doesn't work as the original design was set up to work, that was flawless. What's called a flawless design, the original design, mechanics. I know. They think they know better than the one. And so you realize how that goes when, you have, as we say, free will, free choices. The choices that we make, and then we experience the result. So one of the ways that I know how this works with a mirror is how fast we're learning in our mirror, right? The speed of the vibration, the vertical plume. right? And that is a borrow point on healing. How fast we're healing. To experience more love in our heart, which is experiencing more love in our mirror. Right? Which means I'm not going to hurt a tree. I'm everything that tree is that I'm giving love to. So why would I hurt myself by hurting that tree? I know, that's how simple it is. So now you get in, well, they don't have any feelings for the tree. So what are you trying to tell me? They don't have any feelings for themselves? Right? Well, if they're not experiencing any love through them, then why would you expect them to have any love for a tree? So now we're talking about those that don't have a conscience. Now we're back to the mental pathway. Now we're back to the AI pathway, which is simply running data streams. Data, right? Data doesn't have a soul. It's just information. So what are you going to do with the information? What is the information informing us of? How bad it is. Doing a full data analysis. Go look at the work that Guy McPherson did. That's one of the reasons why over time, you're doing the math, right? And I went into certain subjects to put all this together. It's like putting a Rubik's Cube together as fast as you possibly can on a universal and a galactic level to do a full data analysis. How long is it going to take before this thing hits, the shit hits the fan? As a result of what? Following others. Allowing a psychopath to rule over those that experience love in their heart. So now we're back to fallen races, fallen consciousness. I translate it differently, as I've mentioned in so many of my videos. I don't assign labels and names to races per se. It's what I feel through my heart and my soul. And by virtue, because my sensors are so hypersensitive and you're connected to everything, I'm able to feel what's going on. And now I know what's going on because I'm with the one. So it very much has everything to do about what we feel, about what we're exposed to, by what we experience, by those we're connected with. And in this case, it's how fast are we all recovering, right? That's why you had your salvage contracts, redemption contracts, and all the rest of it, right? I know, Mama. And so this is why I spend a certain amount of time, because of how much love I have for California. I call it's the love that I have, not just for everybody that lives in that state, but because the landscape, the topography, nature, everything in California, the way that whole state is carved out, it's one of the most beautiful chunks of dirt, everything that is there, the mineral kingdom, right? All the elementals, the clouds, the trees, the canyons, right? The drainages, how the water flows, how the water cycles work, how the carbon cycles work, how it all provides for itself, everything that everything needs. It's alive and living as a cellular organism. Going from, say, Mexico all the way up through the desert of Southern California, right over to the coastline, and all the way up through the Tehachapi Mountains, up through Mount Whitney, all the way up through, Mount Lassen, Mount Shasta, and then going all the way over to the Redwoods. That whole state. I happen to be blessed to have gone through every national forest in the entire state of California, most of those in Oregon, many in Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, Arizona, Nevada, and covering that whole area pretty extensively, and just how beautiful it is. But I have a very soft spot for California, because at the time that I was born and was there when there was a lot more open space, right? That was still, to the degree to which we can measure it, is in a natural state, a more natural state, which means you could walk on the earth, more of the eartha, experiencing more of the eartha everywhere you go. So, like, for example, when I lived in the Bay Area in a place called Sleepy Hollow, okay, I didn't have to, as a little kid riding a little bicycle, I didn't have to go very far from the house I was living in to get out into the oak trees, to get out into the valleys where deer are, where squirrels are, where snakes are, where bugs are, where flying things are, where birds are. See what I'm saying? Always trying to get out of the Truman Show, so that I'm bringing my energy so that I can resonate in a field with everything that is resonating in that field, with the frequencies of living plants, living flowers, living trees, everything that is sentient, that is a sacred temple of light, which is a sacred temple of love, it's a sacred temple of one, because it began with a one. So this is one of the reasons why you could see this unfold, that there was a certain amount of children that resonated. In other words, if you want to think of it as a formation of consciousness, you can do that. But I'll give you another example. If you go back in history and you want to look at the maps on the way that they planned futures and socially direct through mass media programming consciousness, which can be measured in what we call population density consciousness, electrical density consciousness. Like, take the city of New York. You can experience the density in New York because of the density per, right, square centimeter, if you want to do it that way, of units of cellular organisms that are conscious and aware of themselves, and experience the density there as a result of what? Mass density programming. The programs that they're running to live the way that they do in New York City. Right? Versus going in other places, like out in the middle of Colorado somewhere, or New Mexico, and experience the density of the consciousness in New Mexico. The planetary consciousness field. So you realize you have batteries that are represented by the consciousness or the soul that's running the equipment. And that consciousness that is run by that equipment, which is a sacred temple, you're going to experience more sacred temples that are holding space, plugged in and grounded to Mother Earth in that area. That's why when you're navigating your consciousness through a consciousness level terrain, the densities are not the same depending on where you're at and the density that we operate at, by virtue of what we're properly grounded to hold the space with the one, experiencing a pure state of pure love through our heart and our soul. So wherever we are, we're experiencing the one. Wherever we go, holding that space, the space of one. The first line of communication. The Christic spiral. That's what it is. So you're holding ground. That's what it's called. Holding ground. You're holding the ground, like holding the fort down. Protecting the ground, protecting the space, right? Maintaining the poles in balance. That's what it is. So you're experiencing being one, a single pole, right? The first candle. That's why most of the time, and this is a symbol, and you don't even have to think about it when it happens. Hey, just light a single candle. There's the first candle. That's what it means. Run one candle. Light one candle. That's the one's candle. The first spark, the first flame. Keepers of the flame. The wisdom keepers. Beloveds. That's what beloveds are. Wisdom keepers. The holy people. Go over to that channel with that Navajo. The Navajo he's a beautiful elder with the Navajo Star Nation. I forget his name. He talks a lot about the history of Hopi Anahazi. Okay, I cry deep in my heart when he puts his videos up, particularly when he talks about the holy people. Same language of the founder races, the language of sound, language of love, which is the Sons of Lyra. And so you could see sort of back in the 80s and the 90s when folks were, oh, what were they doing? Using the money that they had based on the purchasing power that they did have, which means you could work a job, a single job, like being a mechanic or working in any basic skilled trade, voc ed, right? Put enough money aside, which means, okay, I'm gonna pull a sheet of paper out here with my assets and my liabilities. My goal is within 2 years' time, I'm going to have enough money saved up by looking at what it's going to cost approximately then by doing the math at the amount in which inverters are increasing their replication versus the speed at which accelerators, right, are going forward. So I'm going to spend less electrons on things I was spending electrons on before. So I'm going to get those things, I'm going to get rid of those things out of my memory. So what you find here is when you think of time and density, time and space in which events occur, and how fast things are changing over time, is getting rid of things over time that don't serve us, of what's held in memory. This would be your prepper movement, by the way, because they were realizing this place is going to collapse, and I don't want to be here when it does. That would be like those that build Truman Show sets. Warner Brothers, Paramount Studios, what is it? DreamWorks, all them folks. Yeah, MGM Studios. That whole gang. That's all mass media programming. I know. And so you could see where they were buying like containers, right? And what is it? I saw a video the other day up in, I think it was South Dakota. I had a friend of mine decades and decades ago who worked up in Minot, where SAC had their underground silos, nuclear weapons stuff. And some of the silos that are used for either bunkers, underground, storing ammo or their storage containers is what they are, where they were once being housed for military or war theater operations to play Star Wars video games. And so they're now using them as a place of refuge. Like the movie, what is it, Divergent? We no longer want to be a part of this movie set, so we're going to live in a different part of another movie set. Simulating a different environment because we're choosing to live in a different way because that one doesn't have a future. Now we're into Wall Street and futures, future investment, the investment of our energy. Future proofs past, back to the future. So now they're living out in places, right? They went and loaded up with an arsenal of weapons so they could protect themselves because they realized, hey, when these cities go south, and these folks, and I did when you're studying environmental engineering, you realize, I remember at a time that I looked at it when you think of conservation biology. Say you take a city of 8 million people, how many of those people rely on things being shipped to them because they're not naturally producing what it is that they need? Like living in nature where Mama gives us everything we need. Like when I was living on the island of Kauai, I didn't have a job. I didn't have any money, but there was plenty of spring water that we had access to from the waterfalls, right? And mangoes, coconuts, passion fruit, avocados, red bananas, star fruit, breadfruit. Wow. That was a big bang moment. Yeah. Living in nature. Eden. Being provided for everything that we already need. Wow, we're learning now. So what you begin to realize that nature's already given us everything that we need at no charge. No charge. Whoa, so the whole electromagnetic spectrum. We are the whole electromagnetic spectrum. We're the true generators, the accelerators of electromagnetic energy, so that what we see in our mirror is the manifestation of what we experience in our mirror, being with the One, experiencing eternal life creation spheres. That's right. So their goal was to invert the consciousness so that now they believe that it's nature that's doing it to them rather than them being the generator of their own mirror, which means everything that is in their mirror, okay, and how fast they lose what is in that mirror by cutting down all those trees, destroying all those plants, uprooting everything, right? Remember, I was really happy to see when Karen said one time, leave it in the ground. I did a video on that on my Robert Sweet channel. As a matter of fact, I had a friend of mine that I worked with up there to do like a little crash course. And then I think there's a video that I did up there called The Final Test. Here's a short final exam that had to do with futures and mirrors, where, in other words, and this is just too basic logic, but remember that old saying when we used to say that you're only as strong as your weakest link? Where you can apply another principle to that, which simply means that my future health and wellness is based on your future health and wellness. Because if you're not experiencing a state of love and joy and you're not happy and having fun, then chances are you may end up doing something, which means you're not taking care of your own health as a result of the trauma that you've experienced. And if you're not healing, then I may experience something in the future as a result of what happened to you, and your inability to heal may end up you using your energy in a way that is exposing others to what happened to you that causes them to get sick. Therefore, if I'm the One and I'm integrated and I'm experiencing being one with all creation, then that means that everything that is in my mirror that I'm giving love to, if I'm experiencing a loss of energy in you, then it would behoove me to make sure that I'm healing you so that I'm not going to experience in the future what you've been exposed to that's now being exposed to me, which is a virus. That's right. That's how it works. Huh, Mama?